Job search behaviors. You want to spend your limited time searching for jobs doing the highest returning behaviors. I talk about this a lot on my Thursday and Friday coaching sessions. It's hugely important to realize you have a scarce resource, which is time. You want to maximize the value job search wise that you get out of every hour you put into that job search. So how do you figure out what is a high returning task? What is a low returning task? How do you figure that out? Well, I have a framework that I teach, and this is your leverage neutral overhead, LNO. This is a framework that across the board people use in businesses to figure out what tasks they should be focused on. This is the beginning of creating a bit of a value stream or an understanding of a value stream. And you can apply this to your job search so that you're not wasting your time on overhead activities, but you are focusing your time on leverage activities. So let me go through what each one of these things are. Leverage activities are those things that you do, those tasks, those work items that you do, which return bigger value than your 1 hour. So I spend an hour, say, doing social media shares, setting up a social media content calendar for the week. How much does that hour of investment return? Well, think about it. Every time someone sees that post, you've essentially explained that post to them. And maybe that's a share of your project. Maybe that's you talking about your job search and what you're looking for, where you want to work at, what types of projects you're looking at taking on. Instead of having to tell that to person after person after person after person, when you share that on social media, people see it. It's passive. You're not going out to people intentionally one by one. You are letting people come and find your social media shares. And so that 1 hour that you spend, you don't just get one viewer for that 1 hour. You get multiple viewers of your posts, and it happens passively while you're not working. So social media shares are a 10x. They're a leverage task. So our blog posts, your independent project is another one. That portfolio website that you could put together or GitHub repo that you put out there, those are all leverage tasks. They're multipliers. You put in 1 hour and it pays over and over and over and over again. You don't have to keep doing that 1 hour just to get that value out of it. So those are the tasks that you want to focus your time on. You want to find as many leverage tasks as you can and spend the majority of your time working leverage tasks. Now, there are neutral tasks. These are 1x. Basically, it's 1 hour returns 1 hour. And these are often necessity type tasks. You have to do them even though they're not leverage tasks, even though they're not tasks that are going to return multiple value for single effort. And those are things like networking. Every time you send out a networking request, say on LinkedIn, or you send a direct message out or an email, that's 1-to-1. 1 hour, one connection. Social engagement's the same thing. I comment on someone's post, and this is a great way to start engaging with hiring managers and build a relationship, is engaging with their content on social media. Same thing with attending conferences and talks. You are 1-to-1. Phone screening is another one that's a neutral. You have to do it, but you spend an hour in a phone screen, you've only got that one hiring manager or that one company opportunity from that phone screen. And finally, capability tests. Again, it's a requirement. You have to do these capability tests for job interviews, but you do one and it only returns one value back to you. So you want to minimize the number of neutral tasks you have to do, but realize the tasks that you put in the neutral bucket are probably essential. And so even though they are lower returning, you have to be good at them and you have to spend some of your day on them. Now, finally, this is where a lot of your job search time gets sunk into, is overhead. You don't want to do these tasks. You want to actively be bad at these because they waste your time. They actually take your time and return nothing. So what are overhead tasks? Cold emails and DMs. You want to do best practices when you network. So don't do cold emails and DMs because you send these out And who knows, you may get zero response from them. It's the same thing with recruiters. When you work with a recruiter, who knows what you're going to get out of it? So you spend 1 hour working with one recruiter and maybe you never get called back. Same thing with applications. You could send 100 applications out there, spend 20, 30 minutes with each application, and those may be wasted 20 or 30 minutes. So that's overhead. Browsing job descriptions doesn't get you a job. So again, it's an overhead task. And follow-up. Every time you have some sort of interaction, if you have to follow up, that's a time sink because maybe you never hear back. So it's important to identify tasks by whether they're leverage, whether they're neutral, or whether they are overhead. Spend about 50 to 70% of your time on leverage tasks. Spend 30% of your time, 20 to 30% of your time on neutral tasks. And you're going to find that you're spending about 10 or 20% of your time on overhead tasks, and you want to begin to just shrink that and shrink it and shrink it. We've talked about overhead tasks now, and so you're aware of them. You're going to go back, look at your workflow, look at what it is that you do, and realize that a lot of the tasks that you're doing in your job search are overhead tasks. So you're going to immediately remove the obvious ones. But as you're working through, the next couple of weeks of your job search, you're going to find more and more of these overhead tasks where you're like, wait a minute, I'm not getting anything out of this. This task is not returning any value to me. It's a time sink. It's overhead. And you're going to be able to shove a lot of these tasks out of neutral and into the overhead bucket, and then just stop doing them. They aren't returning value to you. So stop doing them and reclaim that time and try to find some leverage tasks that you can do that will multiply, that will return more value than the amount of time that you put into it. So optimize your job search behaviors by prioritizing value tasks. This is something that I teach repeatedly. Like I said, in my Thursday and Friday coaching sessions, I spend a lot of time answering questions around this LNO framework and teaching people specifically what it is that they're doing, from in your resume and how you present yourself online to actually just coaching you on the job search. I'd spend a lot of time answering questions in both of those sessions that that really help you basket and put the tasks that you're doing in the right bucket and put your resume into a framework where you present your best capabilities. And that has a lot to do with this leverage neutral overhead framework and how you can push all of those tasks into leverage. You want to push those forward. You want to push your presentation of yourself into leverage rather than overhead or neutral. So again, look at this framework. Spend the next week just bucketing your tasks and your work items to make sure that you are doing as much. 50 to 70% of your time should be leverage tasks. 20 to 30% of your time should be neutral tasks. And when you find yourself doing overhead, pull it out. Stop doing it. I know it feels like you have to do overhead behaviors, but you really don't. You're going to find that overhead behaviors, the ones that don't result in anything, well, if they don't result in anything, why are you doing them? Don't feel like you must do these overhead behaviors and pull them out as much as possible. Remove them from your workflow. Now, if you're still having trouble after you do the bucketing, it's easy to sign up for my Thursday and Friday classes. It's an hour-long group question and answer session. One of them is for resume and profile reviews. That's what I do on Friday. Coaching, just general question and answer, is what I do on Thursdays, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Link to signups in the description. So hopefully this has helped you at least decide which behaviors and which tasks you should work on. So spend the next couple of weeks being a little bit more intentional and smarter about what it is that you spend your job search time on. You're going to land a job a whole lot faster than if you spend most of your time on overhead tasks.